All right, all right, all right, all right. Good evening, everyone. I started this up early. I'm gonna make an announcement over on the original Big Discussions 76 channel. I'm gonna play the intro, and then I'm gonna bring Engineering Cannabiz up so we can all learn something. So give me a second here. Let me make the announcement because Big Discussions 76, that's where it all got started, and that channel was like my antenna. So, and something about the tech, people really, really love the tech. Let's see. One of the upgrades I'm going to make is a camera, so I think you can see the side of me the way some of the other content creators do. Maybe one of the mics, one of those big mics, but when I'm typing now, you can see the computer shaking. So everything in due time. Okay, guys. So I'm going to play the intro, and then on the other side, I'm going to welcome up Engineering Cannabis, and then we're going to get into about an hour-long discussion, and then we'll wrap it up. So I'll see you on the other side. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Yusuf Dunbar, and this is Big Discussions 76, Science and Technology. That is the first intro I ever created for this channel. I did that after I figured out, after using StreamYard for a year, that there was a video function. So in that intro, I took us from the biological sciences. I tried to span the entire acronym, but I took us into outer space at the end. And some of you all really liked those images from the Hubble telescope a couple of days ago that I found on Twitter. So I'm going to use more of those in the future since you guys liked those images so much. And I was going to show you guys, and I'll show you images of the James Webb telescope as well, because there's just so much information regarding that. I want to shout out everyone who's in the chat right now or who's stopped through. I see Sheed. Faber, I'm not familiar with you. Really, Chris? Always good to see you. And the all-star advisor, Alonzo Hall, has stopped through as well. I see some more folks are peeking in right now. Please hit that like button. And I don't have a super chat over on this channel. At this time, I don't have enough watch hours. So I'm trying to build this up. And I'm going to thank Engineering Cannabiz when he comes on for being persistent about this, because this allowed me to squeeze in another live stream before the holiday. So so throughout our chat, I'll be leaving my Cash App and PayPal there in case you want to leave something. But with that, I'm going to bring up my guest for the evening, Engineering Cannabiz, so he can talk to us and teach us something about machine learning and the role, its increasing role in healthcare, and also um, other aspects of the biological sciences. So with that, everyone, let's welcome in Engineering Cannabiz.
Hey, hello, how's everybody doing today?
Good. How are you, Engineering Cannabiz?
I'm great. And you?
Good.
Thank you for allowing me to be in your show today and teaching people about machine learning, AI, and the health industry. Because right now, this is where it's evolving into, where AI, machine learning, deep learning, and all that is being tied into the health industry, and it's making strides, huge strides. So again, thank you for making this topic available for everybody.
Well, thank you for number one, stopping through and listening to the previous streams, but also thank you for volunteering your knowledge set here, because one of the things I want to use for this channel is to increase awareness of these types of things, because people, if they don't know, they're going to get left behind.
Yes.
So
the whole tech industry is it's now basically in every sector and it's now in every sector and every industry, and it's always evolving and with new technology from blockchain to IoT to AI, the machine learning, deep learning. Even right now, I just saw a list of top technologies in 2022, and AI, machine learning, and all that was number one. So again, it's in every industry right now, and especially within the health sector, cancer research, basically all the vaccines and all that. It's a huge part of basically playing a huge part. Machine learning is playing a huge part of it.
okay, Engineering Cannabis, give me 1 second here. I just want to show this picture. Let's see if I can find it. This is actually one of my favorite pictures, and I think I got this from my blogging platform. Well, I thought I had it handy. Let me look one more place for it. I have a folder full of all these pictures. Engineering Cannabis, where's your accent from?
I'm currently from Nigeria, West Africa, born and raised, and I've been here for years. I went to high school here, went to college, and been here for years. So but currently I'm Nigerian.
Okay. All right. See, I was about to ask you which tribe, but we don't have to get into all that.
Yeah, I'm Igbo, so
Igbo. All right. All right. Igbo. All right. I know Igbo, Yoruba, and I know there are like
yeah,
two or three other.
Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa. There's a lot.
Uh-huh.
Calabar. There are a lot of tribes, a lot of languages in Nigeria. So, but the three major ones are Igbo, Yoruba, and Hausa.
Okay. All right. So everyone, I wanted to show this picture really, really quickly because uh for the groups coming up under us, me and Engineering Cannabis, we're already into our careers and stuff. We've already gone through our schooling. But this is a picture of the IoT. I think I got this from my blogging platform. Someone submitted guest content, and I really just love this picture. So it's just showing the cloud driving all of these different gadgets in our homes, cars, airplanes, drills, all those different things. So for the people who are in school now, if they're not getting knowledge on these applications and these skill sets, they're going to get left behind. So
You said it brilliantly. Again, the cloud. Again, there are a lot of technologies. Again, IoT, 5G, blockchain, AI, machine learning, quantum computing. These are upcoming technologies that are basically already changing every industry possible you can think of. If any industry you can think of, all these technologies are basically changing how it's being ran right now. So even you brought up the laboratory um, the individual who did laboratory work. You brought her up, and she even said automation is in lab work in from your last guest. So again, it's new technologies are going to be in widespread and everywhere. It's you need to basically learn how these new tech is basically used and utilize it to basically it's a free for all right now. Learning how to use it, and it's also very profitable.
mhm.
Again, currently I'm a data scientist and AI and ML engineer, and and every time I get jobs calling me up, hey, we'll give you 190K, 100, just come. We need your expertise. We need your this, and it's again different locations, Florida, anywhere you want. So and because they don't have that much talent in terms of AI and machine learning and all that, it's hard to fill those roles, and because of that, it's very profitable. And again, it takes time to learn this, but if you learn it and know how to apply it, it's not only profitable. It's profitable for not only for a job, but also profitable for if you want to start something on the side too at the same time. So it's
Okay.
up to you.
Okay. So let's come back to that. But let's
Okay.
let's start from the top. First of all, and I find myself asking all the tech guys this. Where did the name come from? Engineering Cannabis.
So I basically when I was working on AI and all that,
Hmm.
and I decided, okay, because currently I work for the government, my 9 to 5 is the government side. So I said, okay, I have this knowledge, I have this experience. What industry can I go in where I can make a huge impact? And basically, there isn't any much competition or there isn't any notoriety that much. So I said, okay, the cannabis industry. It's coming up. It's basically there's a lot of problems in there that I can see that you can utilize a lot of AI and machine learning and all that, and also blockchain technology. I said, okay, why not go in and start there? And I said, okay, why not use YouTube as a way to also talk about these technologies within the cannabis industry? And again, nobody was talking about the cannabis industry, especially tech within the cannabis industry. So I said, okay, why not just name it Engineering Cannabis? So after just calling in, basically referencing tech and the cannabis industry itself. So just calling it Engineering Cannabis. And from there, I started I have my own product line and also tech products within the cannabis industry and also out of the cannabis industry.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe towards the end you could tell us about how tech, because uh, like everybody else, when I think of the cannabis industry, I don't think about technology. But let's
Whew.
okay, we'll get there. We'll get there. Tell us about your background. So you told us you're Nigerian,
Yeah.
and what's your training in?
So
Describe your training.
my training is I came here, got a bachelor's in chemical engineering and a master's in civil engineering. I'm currently working on my second master's in logistics. And after that, I basically started working for a manufacturing company doing with data science and all that, looking at data science and within manufacturing. Then after that, I decided to go into the government to do more in detailed data science and AI development. And that's what I'm currently doing. That's just one hat I'm doing. And that's one training. Then also I'm a CTO for a startup health company where they basically develop AI and AI for the health industry. So AI for hospitals, AI for EMTs, so AI driven solutions for hospitals and all that. And also, again, I'm in the cannabis industry, developing tech for the cannabis industry too. So again, my background in chemical engineering, civil engineering basically drove me into the world of data science and AI, and that has basically driven me into different sectors, from the health industry to the cannabis industry itself.
So that's fascinating that your background is in chemical engineering and then civil engineering, but you made the transition over to data science.
Yes. It's I always call it a huge leap. It's again, data science is a lot of medical focused. So we got a lot of statistics, which I took in my engineering, a lot of calculus, a lot of math intensive subjects. So from in my grad school, I was always interested in mathematical models. So I basically did some environmental engineering, mathematical models, looking at environmental plumes and pollution, did mathematical models in there. So I was always interested in modeling and mathematics and focus and all that. So all that focus and all that interest basically piqued me into the area of AI and data science. Again, I love data. I think data will tell you everything and anything you want to know, and you can also tell a story from data. So I grew interest in that data, and then from there into the data science, into the AI, and then that basically grew into what I'm doing right now, where I'm in every sector I want to be because AI is in every sector and in every industry. So any sector I choose, I can just go in and say, okay, how can I apply AI to this? Or how can I apply data science to this? And the door's open because again, everything now is basically driven by data, big data. So how can I harness that big data to basically make problems go away?
Okay, so let's stop right there. How how did you get involved with artificial intelligence?
Data science is basically AI itself. People kind of confuse it, but this is AI. So this is what it is. AI is a big umbrella, right?
Hmm.
The AI is the biggest umbrella. Under AI is machine learning. Machine learning under that is deep learning and reinforcement learning. What AI does is it takes those machine learning or uses those instruments. Let's say machine learning and deep learning are instruments. AI uses those instruments to capture data and make sense of that data. So AI is just the umbrella, but machine learning and deep learning and all that are tools to capture those data and then make sense of that data. So, for instance, one thing I've seen a consensus is when you mention AI, the one thing everybody goes into is Skynet and robots and all that. I'm like, no, AI. What AI is, it's in your everyday life right now. It's in your day-to-day life. AI is predictive analysis. AI is pattern recognition. AI is when you go to a bank, when you go to a bank and you see a withdrawal and they tell you there's a withdrawal of a certain amount that doesn't match what you do, that's AI. because it uses your pattern to know, hey, you're not usually withdrawing this amount of money, but why is there a 10,000 withdrawal from your account? Fraud detection. That's AI. AI is Siri. AI is when you open your phone with your face. That's AI. AI is basically anything and everything. AI is already involved in your day-to-day life. So again, AI is not just a robot. AI is again pattern recognition, voice, basically language. When you use your phone and Google, and you want to basically talk to someone with another language, and you basically use your phone to change your language from English to maybe Japanese. That's AI. That's natural processing language. That's AI. AI is everything. So right now, AI, it's not a robot. AI is everything you can think of. Predictive analysis, pattern recognition, facial recognition, voice, Siri. That's AI. So AI is that umbrella. So the process of taking data to teach your AI is where the tools like machine learning, deep learning, and reinforcement learning comes into play. They take the data to teach your AI what to do, how to predict, how to know pattern recognition. So that's what machine learning, deep learning, and all that does. So AI is the biggest umbrella. Then within all that, it's basically machine learning, deep learning, and all that, taking that data to teach your AI itself.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, so Hollywood is basically
Hollywood is basically
misbranded it.
it's skewed people's mind. Like AI is just robots trying to take our jobs, man. AI is already in here. AI, we need to. Everybody's trying to put AI into a box, but AI is beyond the box right now because right now we still don't even know what AI can do. We just right now like the recent findings in the healthcare industry with vaccines. That the vaccine for the COVID that was brought on by AI and through machine learning, and it was just done this year.
Okay, before we go on, so again, so there's a misnomer between what Hollywood has shown us. Hollywood is basically showing us self-aware,
Yes.
sentient
Yes.
machines, but that's not
Yeah.
what AI is. AI
No,
is, and it
no,
sounds like
that's not.
okay. Well, let's break that down. Let's break that down a little bit.
Okay.
So you put machine learning and deep learning under AI, which to me says that those are components of it. Or
Yes, those
so,
are
so can you
You
talk
got it.
about the difference between machine learning and deep learning?
Okay, so first things first, machine learning, machine learning or deep learning, first they all have algorithms attached to it. They're all mathematical. All these are mathematically heavily endowed. They're just mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go with machine learning. Machine learning is just basic mathematics, statistics, where you create algorithms, where you take data and feed your data into algorithms. So for instance, we have normally in machine learning, it's normally distributed into three segments of algorithms: classification algorithms, regression algorithms, and clustering algorithms. So what you do is basically take your data, feed one of those algorithms your data. You have raw data, just raw data, and say, okay, for instance, I want to teach a vehicle. I want to teach a vehicle how to drive. So maybe a straight lane, just a straight line. So the data, let's say the data for that straight line is, let's quantify the data for that straight line. Speed, let's say speed, just use speed of the truck. Let's say that will give you a straight line. So let's say we want to teach that algorithm how to think on just going straight through within a straight line. So you take that raw data and you feed it into an algorithm. An algorithm basically it's a statistical equation. So let's look at a logistic regression, or let's look at a linear regression line. Let's look at linear. We all know linear regression, right? Y equals mx plus b. Simple
Mm-hmm.
linear regression, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what it does is take raw data and feeds it into that linear regression algorithm. And that linear regression algorithm learns how to predict a straight line. So the goal is for that regression algorithm just to be predicting a straight line always. And each time we feed raw data, the goal is to make that algorithm predict that straight line as efficient as possible. So the goal is just taking raw data and feeding that algorithm to make a prediction of straight line as efficient as possible. And that's just pure machine learning. It's taking just a simple mathematical algorithm and feeding raw data into it to make a prediction. And that's machine learning itself. Now, deep learning is different because deep learning now utilizes what we call neurons, like the brain system, the neurons. It's mapped like a neuron, where it's mapped like a brain, how brain basically connects, how brain fires neurons and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So what deep learning does, it takes multiple neurons and takes data and feeds it into neurons to make a prediction. So right now you're not using again machine learning, you're using algorithms. This one you're using neurons and basically deep learning neurons and all that to basically make a prediction. So for instance, within the deep learning algorithm, there's a couple of certain algorithms like a convolutionary neural network or RNN or LL multilinear. I'm making a lot of equations,
Mm-hmm.
but deep learning is basically mapping out a whole algorithm like the brain itself, where it's mapped out like neurons firing from one neuron to another, compared to a machine learning where you're just taking raw data and feeding it directly into an algorithm, a mathematical algorithm, to make a prediction or make a judgment. And deep learning is you instead of feeding an algorithm, you feed in a neuron, a brain neuron, to make a prediction or make a decision itself. So two different sides. One uses a neuron or basically use brain neurons, the other uses an algorithm itself.
Okay, now when you say feeding a neuron, are you saying that literally, or is this a microchip, or?
No, you're feeding a mathematical. It's a mathematical. It's not literal. It's a mathematical representation of a neuron. So it's a mathematical representation of a neuron. So basically, you're feeding a mathematical representation of a neuron itself, and all that math. It's also basically highly mathematical too. It's basically using again. It's all mathematics. Basically, before I don't want to get too deep into the mathematics to confuse people, but it's all based on statistics. Everything from machine learning, deep learning is based on statistics.
Okay.
Highly statistics, just high level statistics.
Okay. Snuggles668 says it's a mathematical prediction, that's all. And then Snuggle says, you mean it is given multiple algorithms to predict multiple predictions with the same amount of information that is given. So it sounds like you're teaching.
You're teaching your AI how to basically at the end of the day, what it is an AI is like a child. You're teaching that child how to think by giving it information. So I'm going to basically, I was always saying before, let's dumb it down to the fifth grade level. An AI is basically taking a child, like a child who learns ABC.
Mm-hmm.
The raw information is the ABC. So you're giving that child information, A, B, C, all that. So the AI is the same thing. You're taking raw information and you're trying to feed that raw information for the AI to learn how to think at the end of the day. So the goal is to teach that AI with raw data, raw information. So at the end of the day, make decisions from that raw data and raw information.
Okay.
So for instance, let's say like with the new automotive vehicles, the automation of vehicles. When you're teaching a car how to ride and how to drive, You're teaching it based on what the car knows, the speed, the steering wheel, how to brake, how to speed, all that. You're taking that raw data and you're teaching the algorithm how to learn from that, how to maneuver using speed, using quantifiable data. So you're teaching an algorithm, a mathematical algorithm, how to learn from raw data. So speed, for instance, when the car is driving, the speed of a car, how it maneuvers. Basically, all that information is then taken into an algorithm to learn how to maneuver that car itself. So over time, the more data you feed the algorithm, the better efficient it gets over time. So like a child, the more you teach a child, the more he learns and the more he grows and the more he becomes better. The same way as the AI, the more you feed the AI the data, the more it grows, the more it becomes better. Now, the tools you use to teach a child is also the same way as the tools you use to teach AI. The tools you use to teach a child is basically a teacher. A teacher comes in, a parent comes in, and gives the child information. So now the tools you use to teach an AI is the machine learning, the deep learning, and the reinforcement learning. So that's what AI is. It's basically like a child, but the tools you use to teach the AI are the machine learning, deep learning, and reinforcement learning. Where those tools are used to basically teach the AI how to think at the end of the day.
Okay. Now, before we move on to where this is all being used, because as a biological scientist, I'm curious to hear about where that's being used. But just briefly, the mathematics, how much?
It's a lot of math.
Okay, so for context,
Okay.
are there like mathematicians working on the algorithms, or are
Yes,
there mathematicians working on? So these people are
they create new algorithms each day to basically. It's again, new research papers are creating new algorithms each day or each month to better improve how the AI is basically learning. So again, machine learning has numerous algorithms attached to it. We have regression algorithms. We have classification algorithms. We have clustering algorithms just for machine learning itself. So you have to learn all those algorithms on how it works, on how that works to basically teach an AI system. So, for instance, if I want to recognize, if I want to teach my AI how to recognize you in a picture, Dr. Dumbo, anytime. So, if I want to teach my AI, for instance, I want to teach my AI to recognize Dr. Dumbo anywhere he passes in the where you live. If I want to teach my AI to recognize your face anywhere you pass around your building or around your whole vicinity, how can I use my AI to do that? And it's easy to do that because first thing I have your data, basically your YouTube channel with your pictures in there. So now I know how to take your pictures. So I take your pictures. I then use your pictures. Maybe I take like 50 of your pictures. Teach my AI saying, okay, my AI, this is Dr. Dumbo, based on some classification algorithms, recognize his eyes, his color of his eyes, his beard, his nose, how his nose is slanted, his eyes. How I want you to take those 50 pictures and recognize that. Teach the algorithm with those 50 pictures that this is Dr. Dumbo every time. Just take 50 pictures. So that 50 pictures basically goes to my AI and says, okay, based on all his features, his nose, his eye, my algorithm recognizes that this is Dr. Dumbo based on all your features, all your nose, your AIs, and all that, and quantifies that. And also quantifies the spaces between your eyes, the spaces between your nose, and all that. It quantifies that. It says, okay, once my algorithm sees this and sees that these face features exist, this is Dr. Dumbo. So now I take that algorithm, which already learns your face, and basically then store it in every hidden camera around your vicinity. And then each time you pass, it then pings on you like, ping, this is Dr. Dumbo. Ping, this is Dr. Dumbo. bing, this is Dr. Bamba, because the algorithm now recognizes your facial recognition, your features. So that's what AI is. It looks at all your features and quantifies it, and then says, okay, ding, this is always Dr. Dumbo. And it recognizes all that, and that's AI itself. I'm teaching it how to recognize you based on your pictures and the data you have online.
You know, it sounds like you just described.
Yeah, I did something I wasn't. Yeah.
Well, no, I was gonna say it sounds like you just described the clear at the airport.
Yeah, it does.
Your eyes in,
Yeah.
or your fingerprints, and all of a sudden it brings up your identity.
That's facial. That's what facial recognition is, and also can do with your voice. So when again, in order to clearly identify you, if I want to clearly identify you, I use your face and your voice. So your voice, when you talk every time, I take that data, and then that data again, it's in how your pitch, your tone, and all that, and I feed it to my algorithm and said, maybe I have a lot of data set on how your voice, how you talk, and all that. I feed it to my AI and say, hey, anytime you hear this with this tone or this pitch, this is Dr. Dumbo. So now I have your face and your voice. Now I have two recognitions. I've taught my AI two ways to recognize you based on your voice, your pitch, your voice, how you talk, how you say certain words, again, how you say your R's or all that. I can basically teach my AI how to recognize that. So basically, when you speak and when I say when you speak and your voice, I can then recognize and say, okay, this is Dr. Dumbo based on my AI. I feed those data into my AI, and anytime you pass anywhere, it just pings you and says, this is Dr. Dumbo based on the way he talked or the way he looks, or maybe when you're maybe when you're in your fuel station and you're trying to get fuel in there, and you say one word and all that, the camera in there recognizes that's Dr. Dumbo. My AI is already loaded up and said, that's Dr. Dumbo. He recognizes that's Dr. Dumbo because I have all that data, which I fed to the AI to learn that that's Dr. Dumbo.
Okay. All right. So let's move on. You know, over email, you mentioned that this is being used now in what
Protein
predicting
synthesis.
protein sequences.
Yeah, same, yeah,
Okay, yeah.
with
So please tell
AlphaFold.
us about that.
So recently, a company called DeepMind, it's a British company, basically developed an algorithm. It's, again, I'm not a biologist by any means, so bear with me. But there's been decades, there was a problem decades ago that nobody can predict how proteins basically bend over time. How proteins, basically bending of proteins, or how those proteins can bend to form. Again, proteins are basically, based on biology, are the basically building blocks of any cell or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So how proteins bend and all that in terms of bending and folding and how it basically structured is basically used in terms of determining what kind of virus you have and all that. And they call it I'm familiar with the machine learning, not the biology, but the problem has been for decades that nobody has figured out how that protein bends. And this has been 60, 100 years. That's one of the biggest problems is how proteins fold and how they can use that proteins to predict basically viruses, how viruses are structured. If you know how those proteins fold, you can predict how viruses and all that are structured, and then from there you can then create a vaccine or how diseases are formed based on how proteins are structured. So for the past 100 years, nobody has figured that out. It's still a mystery. But I know and every time they've been holding experimental, basically, they've been holding courses and ways to try to bring out the best way to basically find out how to basically predict how those proteins fold. So recently, this year, DeepMind created a machine learning algorithm that can predict how proteins fold itself. So they predict, for instance, how the COVID-19 virus, how those proteins basically fold and structure. They predicted how that structure can basically be folded and all that. And from there, they predicted how to basically create a vaccine from that fold itself. And they do that with other, and they also predicted again the next pandemic virus that could come out based on how the machine learning basically creates a fold itself. So what they did was basically create a way to predict the structure of basically any virus or any disease over time.
So, Engineering Cannabis, let's stop right there because everyone, I want to kind of tie this all together. So, I made several videos on protein structure, and you can go back and look at my library about and see those. So, what it sounds like what he's talking about is they're teaching with algorithms, artificial intelligence. We're teaching them about amino acids and amino acid
Yes.
structures. This is all in videos that I've created on this channel. You can go back and take a look, but we know that the amino acids have different properties. Some are acidic, some are basic, some are polar, some are non-polar, some are hydrophobic, some are hydrophilic. And we know that once these things get strung together, there's a primary structure, there's
Yes.
a secondary structure. They manifest as alpha helices and beta sheets. Then you get your polypeptide, and then you get your complex active protein. So it sounds like what Engineering Cannabis is talking about is they're teaching the artificial intelligence to predict those structures.
Structure. So now they can predict any structure, any disease, any structure, and then they can find ways to basically, now if you can predict any structure, any disease, you can now then figure out how to basically combat that disease itself. So now they had the ability. Now the algorithm came out this year, and they've been awarded some prizes that says, and their prediction is like 98% efficient. And now they can predict any protein folds for any virus, any disease you can think of. They can predict it. So imagine what happens in the terms of cancer research. If you can predict the cancer, the cells and the protein fold of a cancer cell itself, then you can then find a way to basically deal with that cancer cell itself. So this is what the whole algorithm is teaching the algorithm how to basically, again, as you showed, how to predict that fold itself, how to predict that structure of any disease or any stuff, and then try to combat that, to way to combat that structure itself, or combat and find solutions to combat that structure itself. So that's what machine learning has done. It's basically now elevated the whole. Previously, when this was usually done, they say it takes years to even learn how one structure or one protein, just how to basically fold one virus protein. It takes years. But they say it takes days just to know any kind of structure for any virus or any stuff, just by predicting, using machine learning to predict that fold itself.
Okay, I'm going to show the audience one other thing because this also ties back into something that was covered on my channel months ago, maybe even a year ago. For those of you who don't know, I was partnering with the G6PD Deficiency Foundation and Task Force. You can go back and look at my library for that content. But in one of the live streams that we did, they were using machine learning to predict pathways of toxicity for individuals who were deficient in G6PD as it related to the pandemic. I'm being careful about mentioning the name because my channel got taken down, but they were using this for their purposes, and it sounds like there are multiple purposes for this. And so that leads me to my next question, Engineering Cannabis. Is this the purpose for this? Is it to make the discovery of this knowledge more rapid, or is it to replace people per se?
It's to make technology more rapid. Okay, let me make it more concise because I'm working on an AI a personal project I'm working on with the company I'm with the CTO. So, for instance, congenital heart defect. One of the biggest problems with congenital heart defect is we don't know what variables affects that itself. People think it's just maybe your weight, blood pressure, and all that. But the goal of what the AI is trying to take as much data points in order to predict how your congenital heart will degrade over time.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, let's say weight. We have weight, we have blood pressure, we have sugar, we have what else? What else can again? Think of any data point that can family history. We have family history. That's a data point. These are just data points that we can feed into the algorithm to say, how can this algorithm, based on all these data points, family history, weight, blood pressure, what again? Is he diabetic? Environmental causes.
Yeah, history of heart disease.
Yeah, all that data. How can we use that to predict what will happen to him in 10 years if he continues if he continues doing nothing? Can we use this algorithm to predict what happens to him in the next 5 years? Yes. If we use the AI, we can say we predict that at the end of the day, after 5 years or 10 years, he might die. We can predict that based on all that data point. Now, the next solution is based on those variables. Let's pick 4 variables out of that and say if we can work on those variables and see if we can improve his condition over time and see if that's impactful. Then we take the AI and say, okay, we improve these data points. Is there a way to either prolong his life or improve his life? Then that AI then predicts, okay, if you do this, improve all these 4 variables. If you change your weight, or you do this, you can see a 70 or 30% increase in health. So the goal is to see the AI and take as much data points to predict the livelihood of a patient with a congenital heart defect or kidney problem or all that, is to take as much data points and take the AI to predict what conditions will happen if he continues the way he is, or if he changes certain data points and see if that prediction comes true or not. And that's what the AI does. It's not only providing you a prediction, it's also providing you a solution on showing you distinctly these data points. If you make changes within these data points, distinctively something will happen. Either you improve it or you don't improve it. So that's what AI is trying. That's what we're working on in one of the companies I'm a CTO of, creating AIs to provide that solution, provide detailed understanding on ailments, kidney problems, heart congestions, taking as much information from sensors, from data, to feed that AI to make that prediction itself.
Okay, so this would assist doctors in patient care?
Assist doctors, assist nurses. We have an AI system right now even working to assist EMTs with drone technologies, where we're working on that. If you look at the recent catastrophe that happened recently, where 8 people died in a show in
Houston?
In the concert, in that concert.
Travis Scott.
Yeah, Travis Scott. There were ways to avoid that. So we're working on with AI systems with EMTs to ways to avoid such things happening in concerts or big gatherings. So this is what we're working on AI, is to make that big improvement, not only in the healthcare side, but with EMTs, with doctors, especially working with congenital heart defects, kidneys. We're working with a hospital that monitors patients who have kidney diseases, diabetes, and all that. And the goal is to figure out, okay, with those data points, with enough data points, can we predict the likelihood of this disease continually affecting this patient over time? Or can we make a prediction where this AI can predict how it basically how it can improve over time? So that's what the AI is to assist the doctors, assist nurses, and assist the EMTs.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. We're at about 51 minutes right now. Yeah, I've already learned a lot from this. You cleared up quite a bit. Can you talk about, in the time we have left, talk about
The cannabis
cannabis
portion.
industry?
Okay, the cannabis again the cannabis industry. It's somewhat taboo. People keep asking me why am I in the cannabis industry. I said it's kind of an industry. It's a new industry that's coming up, and there's not a lot of research, especially dealing with cannabis itself.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the cannabis plant has at least 120 different chemical components within that plant, and that has not been studied yet. CBD, CGN, and all that. There's still a lot of plants that don't know what it does. So that only that first fascinated me a little bit. Then the question comes in is, okay, how is this plant cultivated? How is this plant packaged? How is this plant delivered? How is this plant done? And how is it done within the legal settings? So I decided to just look into the whole cannabis industry from inception of the seed to cultivation to when it's being delivered to the patient. So, and what I saw was a lot of problems in there. From the cultivation, there was a lot of problems in cultivation where it's basically sometimes wasteful, and there are problems with, and then again, resources, and again, automation comes into place. How can I automate the cultivation itself? How can I eliminate the human aspect of the cultivation instead of have it basically run by AI system? And it can be done basically looking at the master grower and then taking the knowledge of the master grower, again, data. The master grower is just a data point. He has all the knowledge, and all his knowledge is quantifiable. And all that knowledge, once it's quantifiable, I can then teach my AI to think like him. So if I can teach my AI to think like him, I can then not replace him, but have somebody more efficient to do stuff around the cultivation. So the goal is to, again, think like him. And again, we have problems with security system. How can I make my whole security system within the cultivation and all that more secure? Again, AI is another causal action. I can teach my algorithm with drone technology and all that, to basically secure my whole area at a cheaper and more efficient rate. I can do that. It's not difficult. The goal is, again, when I looked at the whole industry and I saw the problems and challenges, my goal is, okay, how can I make it better? Again, with regulations, there are problems with regulations, federal regulations, state regulations. It's not consistent. How can I make it consistent? That's why I learned blockchain and know how to implement blockchain technology in the regulations and all that. I learned how to do that again, in the cannabis industry. So what I saw was a lot of opportunities and a lot of ways to deploy some of my ideas within that industry. And that's what I'm currently doing, just deploying ideas and different ideas and seeing how it works and seeing how efficient it is, and then going from there. But the reason I'm in the cannabis industry because it's just a place where there's a lot of problems. I think I have a lot of solutions to solve those problems.
Okay, so it sounds like they need to standardize everything so that there's more control over the product and more control over the quality of the product.
Quality of product, not only that, but also black market. When it's not a standardized product, you're now competing with the black market. And the way to eliminate black market is to eliminate it through regulations and through, again, I brought this in through blockchain. By putting every legal product on a blockchain and putting that blockchain in stores, now anytime anybody wants to buy a product and he or she has a scanner or a cell phone can scan that product, and that product is in the blockchain, it verifies that, oh, that product is a good product. And if you scan it and it's not on a blockchain, that product is a bad product. You don't need to buy it. And that store owner can be fined or closed, shut down. That's just one aspect of a blockchain that can be implemented. So again, these are the ideas that has been implemented that I've chose to implement in the cannabis industry because again, it's an open area, an open field to implement technology and understand, use new technology and see how can I use that to do this, change this. So that's why I got interested in the cannabis industry.
Okay. I'm going to show everybody something just to kind of, because Engineering Cannabiz just touched on something really, really important regarding the blockchain technology. It turns out that I wrote a blog post about this years ago on my platform, and he just described something, one of the 3 benefits of the blockchain technology. I'll drop this in the chat, and maybe I'll leave it underneath the playback. But 3 of the advantages are creation of a distributed record. So he mentioned being able to check the product right there in the store. Another one is addition to the chain is permission. And then finally, transactions are secured. So I just wanted to give everyone context for why that's important.
Yeah. So the blockchain I learned that I had to master 2 technologies. I said at least 2. So I mastered blockchain and AI. So I learned how to implement a blockchain in different aspects, from again regulations to even my AI system. In order for again, one of the biggest problems with AI is everybody's implementing AI, but nobody's asking the question, what is the AI doing? For instance, when they've deployed AI into the judicial system, for instance, bail. So an AI makes a judgment on your bail itself. If you're a black man or a white man, AI makes a distinction on your bail system. Wow. Based on what? That's the question. Nobody's asking the question. Based on what are you making that decision? What data point are you making that decision on? And my bail is based on what? What's that AI doing? Nobody's asking that question. So even though you ask that question, the question they'll give you is the AI is proprietary and my data points is proprietary. You don't need to know it. But nobody's asking the question, but that AI is making decisions on my life. What variables are they using to make that decision? What data points is that? So again, one of the biggest solutions I suggested was using a blockchain, where all the data, before you create your AI, has to be all your data has to be on the blockchain. And then anytime you feed your AI, teach your AI new data points, when we want to review what that AI is doing, we go back to the blockchain and look at that data point. So that's one of the ways I'm improving how AI is basically making it fair between anybody, knowing how to basically tackle the biases on AI, because nobody's talking about it. There's a lot of bias in AI, especially with black and brown folks.
Okay. What I hear you saying is the effectiveness of the AI is dependent upon the data points that
you feed
trained with.
Yeah. So if you have big data points, it's going to learn. Again, the child learns from bad. If you teach a child bad things, he's going to learn. So you teach your AI bad things or have source data that's not good, he learns how to do it, and then you messed up.
Wow.
So again, that's why I said that's why I deployed a blockchain. I said anybody who's going to teach an AI system, it has to have a blockchain attached to it. That's one of the laws. That's one of the stuff I'm doing with the company I'm working with. Before you deploy an AI, that AI, the source of that data has to be on a blockchain where I can come and do some statistical analysis on that to know if that's the bullshit or you're gonna the AI is gonna either if you put deploy it into a judicial system, AI is gonna give the white guy a $10,000 bond and I'm gonna have a 50,000 or 100,000 bond based on what variables. What differs me from him to him? What are variables? What variables did you use? So again, that's why I said it must be stored on a blockchain. I must have access to that blockchain. I must have access to the data to know what I can do to know why he's making that decision. So that's what I'm doing.
Okay. So, Engineering Cannabis, we're right at an hour.
Hmm?
So I want to wind down soon, but what you just mentioned, I'm making all the connections here as we're talking. Is that a common practice
No, this is
when
something I'm
designing
just
AI?
doing. No, something I just developed.
No, no. What I'm saying is across the board in the field, is that like a best practice to check the blockchain to see?
No, I
So
just
people
developed
aren't
it.
doing that. People are
No,
just
I
putting
just
these AIs together
yeah.
using
No,
data points that they.
they just put data. Someone can say I'm taking my data points from BET to know
Yeah.
how black people think, and then you ask BET, are you using BET source data to know how black are you? Is there something wrong with you? So that's a problem. So I decided to develop that system of check and balances. Before you jump into it, make sure you have a blockchain. It's not best practice. It's just something I'm doing myself with the company I'm working with. As I'm a CTO, I said, look, so we can have trustworthy. So the AI we put in now can be trustworthy, so that people can come in and say, hey, how can we validate that this AI is trustworthy? Go to our blockchain. Go analyze the data in our blockchain. This is where the data point is. But people don't have it. Companies, even big companies, don't have that. Nobody, they'll tell you they don't have that data point. They don't do that. So I'm the one who's trying to have this basically go out there and say, before you create an AI system, have it being stored in the blockchain. Feed your data from a blockchain to your AI. Then we can then track where that source data is. So if we know you, if we see you getting your source data from BET, we're gonna ask you why. Why is your source data from BET, and what's wrong with you?
Mhm.
So this is what I'm developing itself.
Okay. All right. Well, Engineering Cannabis. Yeah, we're just at about an hour. Yeah, I think that's a good place to wrap up for
Hmm.
now. We can always
Sure,
do
I'm
a sequel
available. Yeah, sure, I'm
or
available.
several.
Yeah, I'm available. There's a lot to pack in terms of AI.
Yeah.
It's again, I tell you, it's in our everyday life. It's just knowing how to understand it and how to build on it.
Yeah. Well,
So,
I think well, one of the main things I've learned is number one, what it is. You used the analogy of a child,
yeah,
but you're basically teaching the
AI.
program.
You're teaching the AI the mathematical
Yeah,
program,
you're teaching it based upon
raw data,
raw data.
just raw data. So you're feeding like an A, like you teach a child ABC. This is A, this is B. You're teaching the AI with raw data. This is how this works. So again, if I want to identify black people, I said using BET as the best way to go in. I said anything from BET identifies black people. That's a problem because
Yeah.
black people goes through. It's a spectrum.
Yep.
You can't just narrow black people into one box of BET. Then I call you. There's a problem there. So again, it's teaching your AI, but the question nobody's asking that question. What is my AI learning? It's been implemented. For instance, your loans right now, banking loans. Most banks now use AI to judge if you're going to get a loan or not. But what are the variables are they using to get that loan? What are they doing? Where's the variables coming to judge me? Are you using my skin color? Are you using income? What are you using to judge me getting the loan? So nobody's asking that variable. Where's the source data coming from?
Mhm.
To teach that AI, this is, am I good to get this loan? Where's that source data coming from? Nobody's asking that question.
Okay.
So I'm the one that's saying use blockchain with your AI, and then we can have even the laws right now don't even address it. We have laws, state laws that don't even legislative laws that don't even know what AI is doing. They just said implement it. They're good to go. How is it good to go? Do you know what source data is? What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Nobody's
So
asking that question. So,
the source data matters.
all the source data is important. That's the fuel, the engine of an AI system.
Okay. All right. I think that's a good place for us to conclude. Engineering Cannabis, do you have any parting words or anything?
Parting words is please learn new technologies. It takes time to learn it, but it's important, as I just stated, on how important it is. It's important to know and learn. And again, I'm always learning. I'm always going to learn. But again, please, the world is changing and it's changing fast. And it's new technologies are basically changing our world. So please get involved. State laws, federal laws, ask questions, but understand the technology and ask the right questions. If you don't understand the technology, I promise you, you will not know understand what questions you need to ask. And I promise you, most companies will hide it from you. Like, hey, the AI is 60% efficient. I don't care. Just as long as it makes money, don't tell them anything. Please understand the technology has been used to control your life, and then ask the right questions and laws, and then make those laws favorable for you. Again, understand, then ask the right questions.
Yeah, it sounds like we're talking about decision making,
Yeah.
and if as you said, if the data points that the AI, if they're incomplete or if they're biased or if they're old, and
Yo,
it's not going to ask the right questions, or
it's going to basically
it's
group you
going to
into
give you an
something you're
answer
not
that
supposed
might
to group you into
incriminate
something
certain
you're not supposed to be
populations.
grouped to. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you take the data from 1930s that basically says black people were this and that, and you feed it into an AI algorithm, where are you getting these data points from? How is this data point basically effective in this year and age? These are the questions you ask, but nobody's asking it. Everybody's just oblivious and saying, "Hey," and nobody's understanding the technology. That's the question.
Yeah.
Again, they have 2%. Only 2% of the data scientists are black. Only 2%. We need more people who understand AI and more black people who understand automation, and more black people can say, "Hey, we need more more checks and balances in this AI."
Okay. Well, there you go, everyone. If in this instance, if our people aren't getting into these fields, this is going to have
It's going to
long-lasting
have long
implications in
banking,
banking,
loans,
health, loans, criminal justice.
judicial.
Yeah.
If in healthcare, if your doctor doesn't care about you, an AI system is not going to be designed. The AI system will just be designed for white people to detect their diseases, to detect their ailments, and they say, okay, we don't. The AI is not detecting the black people. Why? What data? What source data did you feed it? That's not detecting black health or black skin conditions or black heart diseases. What data are you not feeding this AI? Questions needs to be answered.
Yeah.
But again, I'm just one person, one company trying to do this, but we need more companies, more black companies, AI that basically focuses on not just one, but everybody, black, white, and everybody, focuses on everybody, not just one specific source data itself.
What's the name of your company?
Right now it's called 3C. I'm the CTO. It's called 3C, 3C Health. So I'm just the CTO. With my partner right now is 3C Health. So that's what the company is called.
CTO, Chief Technology Officer.
Yeah, CTO, Chief Technology Officer.
Okay. Okay. Well, all
So
right. Engineering Cannabis. Yeah, if you want me to, I can put if you guys have a website, I could put that underneath the playback.
right now we're just coming up with stuff and all that,
Okay.
with projects.
Yep. Okay. Well, Engineering Cannabis, yeah, like I said, thank you. I've learned a lot from this. I hope the people who watched it live and the people who watch it on the playback learned something. I know a lot more about AI than I did before this hour. So I got to have you back. Maybe I'll have a bunch. I've had Keep It Techy. I've had Professor Black Ops, and now you. Maybe I'll gather a bunch of you guys together and we'll have a big tech discussion. But thank you. So
Thank you.
everyone, please, if you're watching on the playback, please like, share, and subscribe. And please partake in this information. I want to get my watch hours up, but there was some very, very valuable information that Engineering Cannabis shared with us tonight. So also, if you want to make a donation to the channel, that information is going to be below the playback of this stream. Please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Take care. I'll talk to you the next time. And I'm going to take us out with the intro and the music, which is going to be the outro and the music. So I'll talk to you offline, Engineering Cannabis.
All right.
All right. Everyone have a good night.